Now I'll read one of the standalone stories in Weaving Malawi Sunrise. This story is called Bazamati. Now the story is about one of the young women who Memory and Christy first helped back when they were fundraising for the first girls' school, the one that eventually closed down. But I have used pseudonyms for all of the minor characters in this book. So Bazamati is not really Bazamati, that's not her name. And I made that decision based on my experience and also my lack of experience. I didn't want to open up these young women to any sort of backlash of any kind. They all agreed to the interviews. They all knew what was happening with the material, but I wanted to be extra careful. I didn't feel as though I necessarily understood the culture enough to know the implications of sharing their stories, and I felt that they were young enough that maybe they didn't understand the implications of sharing their stories. So this was just a safeguard, and Memory agreed with me on that decision. So here's the story. Bazamati felt a small knot of fear clench her stomach. She was pregnant. Everything had been going well. Bazamati had a nice boyfriend, and she was in her final year at the Natural Resources College. Once she completed her diploma, she would qualify for a good job. Getting pregnant meant no diploma, and no diploma meant no job. My future, it was bad, she told me. Bazamati thought she knew her boyfriend, but what if he didn't take her in? How could she support herself and her baby without even a diploma? The weeks passed. Bazamati felt her waist grow and her breasts swell. Her grades were good, and her tuition was paid for. So she thought maybe, just maybe, she could finish school before the baby came. Soon the baby was kicking. Bazamati rested her hand on the swell of her belly and felt a little bump push against her fingers. Finally, she told her boyfriend. At first, Roger was worried, but as they talked, he became excited. He felt the baby's movements, and with them his heart filled with happiness. He was a father. Come to my parents' home when you are ready. They will take you in. Bazamati grew bigger every day, her belly weighing her down. She had trouble climbing the stairs to get to class. She was tired all the time. With 1 week left until exams, Bazamati couldn't wait any longer. Her belly was huge. The baby didn't know how important her diploma was, and Bazamati was sure it would come at any minute. She caught a minibus to Blantyre, where she would meet Roger. Like all minibuses in Malawi, this bus was cramped and dirty, crowded with people, bags, baskets, and chickens. Women sat with their babies on their backs. Children crowded on their parents' laps. The bus lurched and sped towards Blantyre, braking every few minutes to drop someone off or to pick someone up who was standing by the side of the road. Bazamati felt dizzy and hot. Many hours later, tired and sick, she reached Blantyre. Roger was happy to see her, but Mvumbwe village was still a minibus and a long, bumpy bicycle ride away. 2 days after leaving the college, Bazamati arrived at her new home. Meeting Roger's family should have been a happy occasion, but Bazamati was arriving in shame, asking for the charity of strangers. Roger had his natural resources diploma, but he didn't have a job yet. They would live on the farm until he got one. A week later, Bazamati went into labor. She needed to get to a clinic fast. Roger's 2 sisters went with her. To reach the clinic, Bazamati rode side saddle, balancing on a small red plastic-covered seat on the back of a bicycle. They took the same long, dusty path that Bazamati had ridden in on a week earlier. The bicycle swerved and bounced. Bazamati endured every contraction and every bump. When she arrived at the clinic, Bazamati was taken in and examined. "We cannot keep you here," they said. "You must go to the district hospital. We're going to have twins." Bazamati laughs now, but it wasn't funny then. "I was afraid by that time," she says. The clinic relented and kept Bazamati. There was no time for her to get to the hospital. A half hour later, she gave birth to 2 healthy baby girls, Chisomo and Sharon. The first months were hard for Basmati. She lived with Roger and the babies in a small dirt house. The house had 2 tiny rooms. There was no bed and no furniture, just a grass mat that covered the dirt floor. Neither room was big enough to stretch out in, so at night Basmati and Roger curled up on the floor with the babies in between them. The babies, they were just crying and crying, says Basmati. Bony and thin, her red blouse stained with milk and dirt, Basmati would sit on the floor of the little house, feeding one baby and then the other while bits of soil sifted down from the ceiling. At first it seemed that a month didn't go by without the twins getting sick, but little by little they put on weight and they grew. They began sleeping through the night, and at 8 months they survived their first bout of malaria. A few months after the twins were born, Basmati wrote her exams and received her diploma. Roger got a job as an agricultural outreach worker. They moved off the farm and now rent their own house. Basmati received a small loan and started her own business, raising and selling chickens. For Basmati, the struggle to raise a family is not over, but she now has hope for the future. So there were a couple of things that I did with these standalone stories. I tried to speak to as many people as I possibly could involved with the story so that I got the story from various perspectives. So I was able to speak to Basmati and Roger when they came to visit at Memory's village. This is them with their two children. And before that, Christy and Memory had told me the story of this young woman. So I got it from several perspectives. And then I was able to add in some details from my own experiences in Malawi. Things like the bits of soil that sifted down from the ceiling. Things like the description of the minibus ride. I'd also seen a photograph of Basmati when she was wearing the red blouse that I described as being stained with milk and dirt. So I made sure that I had enough reference material to retell this story. Although in this particular story, there are no academic citations. In the more academic sections of the book, of course, there are a lot of academic citations from various papers, from newspaper articles, from books, and some books that I was able to get in Malawi in hardcover that are quite rare, and books and other sources that you wouldn't just be able to get from going on the internet. So I did use quite a wide range of research material. I like to collect and over-research and then pare back as I go, rather than doing a minimum amount of research and then trying to craft out of that. I wanted to share with you a couple of pictures. On the left, you see the library at the school as it is now. On the right, you see Memory and her husband Henry and their 3 boys. This was taken a few years ago, so the boys are bigger now, but I like that photograph of the 2. I also wanted to share this with you. If Memory hadn't been happy with how the story turned out, I would have been very unhappy with myself. It meant a lot to me that she was pleased with it. During the final edits, I sent her the completed manuscript, and she did have the opportunity to go through it and make some corrections. There weren't as many corrections as I expected, so that was reassuring. But she was able to make some really important corrections, and she talks about the book even today. In fact, I noticed that her Facebook profile has a picture of the cover of the book, and has for quite some time. So this email that she sent me exemplifies, for me, at least a large part of the reason why I wanted to do this project. and why I was so happy with it when it was completed.